Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu ala rasulillah. We start in the name of God and ask Him to send His peace and blessings upon the final messenger. There are many challenges facing the American Muslim community, undoubtedly, but there are also many, many opportunities. It's a sea of opportunities. It's a field of opportunities. Use whatever analogy you'd like. I want us to think positive. Many are lost and confused, and they admit and they confess as college students that they feel alone, they feel isolated. But us as Muslims, not perfect. It's not that we don't get depressed or anxious, but we have divine guidance. That sets us apart. So the first point is truth. Truth, justice, and unity. And that's what I want to leave with you guys. I want to leave with you guys today. People are lost and confused. Imagine if you had to figure out everything on your own. Imagine if you had to have the answers to all the big existential questions about where we came from and where we're going to go and what's our purpose in life and all that. Imagine you had to figure it all out on your own in one lifetime. It's impossible. And what's right and what's wrong, what's moral, what's immoral. At the macro level, the micro level, the individual level, the societal level. I'm not that intelligent, maybe you are, I'm not. But alhamdulillah, we have divine guidance. And we're not saying as Muslims that we have all the answers and that we don't make mistakes and everything we do is correct. And I know you all know this as Muslims, it's far from the truth. But at the same time, we will say it loudly and proudly. We have divine guidance, and it's not ours. I didn't write the book. It's not just for us. It's not for Arabs or Indians. It's not for people from the East, people that aren't born here. It's for everybody. It's for you, if you want it. And if your parents chose this faith and lifestyle and you choose not to, you have free will. God gave us free will. You can do whatever you want. It's not about where you're from. It's not about your skin color. It's not about your race. It's not about whether you're an immigrant or indigenous, etc. It's your choice. It's not genetic. It's a lifestyle. So point number one is truth. And of course, one lecture is not enough to go into all the truths that are within the Quran, which is God's word, or all the messaging and all the values that our Prophet taught us. But a few points that I think are important and powerful. God and His Prophet taught us the role of the intellect, the role of the mind. You're at university, trying to learn more, trying to explore, trying to challenge yourself intellectually, trying to understand different philosophies and ideologies and so on. God created the universe, created us, created our minds, and taught us the role and the blessing of the intellect. If you're interested in that topic, I encourage you to Google it. There are encyclopedias on the topic, not just books and not just dissertations. God also told us about the heart. Our religion isn't just about the mind, it's about the heart as well. We're a human being, complete, all the pieces, they fit together. But they only fit together if you're doing your best to follow God's guidance, because He created our hearts and our minds. It's about logic and emotion. Neither is right and neither is wrong. They each have their place. God also tells us about the soul. How could you possibly figure out what the soul is about without God telling you? Which experiment, which lab, which test tube, which telescope? You can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't hear it. It's part of the world of the unseen. Right? It's not material. God tells us about the soul. And God tells us about the fitrah, our nature, our innate disposition. What does it mean to be human? Do we have a nature? I think we would agree we do. And psychology debates nature versus nurture and the role. And people, on the left and on the right might have different views on what nature is and what is natural, what's unnatural. Is the system trying to control us, or is this our nature? Are men like this, or women like this? I don't have all the answers, but we do have some basic guidelines from God, who created us and our nature. Hopefully that makes sense. So point number one was truth. It's truth, justice, unity. Point number one was truth. On justice, and of course we have two speakers that are far more knowledgeable on the topic, something I'm very passionate about. In November, we remember. Who's been to the protests? Who's been to a Palestine protest in the last few months? At least one, okay? Hopefully multiple. Some of you have been to probably like 10. It's possible. We've had probably over, I don't know, in one city. I don't know if we've had 10, but I think I've been to like 5 or 6. Who remembers the phrase, in November we remember? In November we remember. Genocide Joe has got to go, right, Linda? Genocide Joe has got to go. I really do believe, and I'm not the first to say this, that something huge is going to happen this November, which is that the Muslim community being only 1%, maybe 1.5%, we're going to teach the Democrats and the Republicans a lesson, which is you can't completely pass every red line and do what have you and whatever you feel like doing. You can't put profits over people, over principles at the most extreme level, taking away people's civil rights and human rights and treating people as less than animals, less than human, and expect that no one's going to say anything, no one's going to do anything. We're going to teach the Democrats and the Republicans a lesson by voting against Genocide Joe. Inshallah, or at least we'll do our best. And I'm not advocating for Trump. The point is to teach both parties a lesson. We don't have to blindly follow either party. There's no rule. No rule says that you do, but it's very common for us and many of the Muslims, the majority of the Muslims in America are the children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. So I understand if you come into a new country, new system, etc., and you feel like these are the two options, you have to pick one. But hopefully our generation, among our positives, so we can teach, teach our parents and teach others and teach the next generation and teach the world. You don't have to blindly follow what's put before you as, the two options, the only two options. There are other options. And I personally, I don't know if we're supposed to go into politics here, and I don't know if MSA is a nonprofit. I don't know. I don't know how to filter myself, but I'm very excited about the fact that Dr. Cornel West is running. But more importantly, we want to, teach the parties a lesson. Inshallah, maybe build our own party one day. Another thing under the topic of justice is, I noticed that this isn't mainstream yet. Inshallah, will be. It's not mainstream yet in the American Muslim community to realize that you can speak directly to your representatives, to your senators, to your congressmen. I did it as early as my early 20s. Alhamdulillah, I went to DC. I was very blessed to do so. Every year the Muslim community goes, and then they might go to their state capital, and then DC, the national capital. So I, with Allah's helping and with teachers and mentors that did a good job, I think. I'm 30 right now. I think I've spoken to possibly around 50 or more politicians, and I'm talking about face to face, or sometimes someone who works directly for them, one of their staffers. But you can do that. Most of the countries we come from, you can't do that. Or they can listen, or they can do exactly what you say. That's a whole separate point. What's in our control is to do our best. So we go speak to these politicians, we have an agenda. Ooh, scary word. We have an agenda. Which community doesn't have an agenda? What organization doesn't have an agenda? Who has a company or a business or an organization or a school or a university that doesn't think about goals, short-term, mid-range, long-term goals? An agenda is simply a set of goals. The American Muslim community, like every community, should have its agenda. And we shouldn't be afraid to speak about it, even if it goes against what other people would want us to have on our agenda. Does that make sense? So we go speak to our politicians, just like every US citizen does. I find it very meaningful. I learned a lot, and you'd be surprised. They're human beings that you can sway them in some ways. It's easier in some states than others. It's probably very tough in South Carolina for them to listen to a Muslim, but you will learn a lot. And you can go to DC, inshallah, and you can speak to congressmen and senators and so on, understand the system, how it works. And then the next point is you could run for something. And I'm very blessed that I grew up in Houston, among other cities, and now I currently live in Dallas. Major Muslim communities, major cities. So I know multiple candidates have run. I've been part of multiple campaigns where I know the Muslim and the person's running. Not that I would not support a non-Muslim running. I've done that as well. But supporting Muslims from our community that are running, and then some of them win, some of them lose. That's how it goes. Don't let anybody convince you that voting doesn't matter, that running is pointless. If you believe that, all right, it's not your fault. You probably heard it a million times. You believe it. I encourage you to. I give you homework. I encourage you to watch the movie Selma. Watch the movie Selma. In short, people were basically killed, beaten over the heads, bled, tortured, put in prison, etc. Not tortured, I say injured, and some I think even died while trying to vote, wearing their suits, coming out of church, right, looking their Sunday best, going to vote, and it was already illegal for them to vote. That's the interesting part. They weren't resisting, and it wasn't civil disobedience, and we're going to vote, although it's illegal. It was already illegal, federally, nationally. The law had changed. It's legal to vote. They're going to go vote locally. This is in the South. They didn't want them to vote. So the cops literally attacked them. Would they do that if the vote doesn't matter? The vote is completely, if it's 100% rigged and there's no possible outcome and why would they do that? Why would they attack people? And we have footage of it. So I encourage you to watch that movie and think about it. Just because you hear this a million times doesn't make it true. It's not true that your vote doesn't matter. It's not true that you can't run for office, and it's not true that someone that looks like you, thinks like you, that's Arab, Muslim, Indian, whatever it is, can't be congressman, a mayor, a senator. We already have a number of them. And so we're going to see more in our times. But under justice, so it's truth, justice, and we'll talk about unity in a second. Genocide Joe, lobbying, etc. And I'll leave, I know it's like intimidating to say 1%, we're going to run for things. It's like, well, we got to change all the congressmen and senators before we have basic human rights. I'll give you some good news, alhamdulillah. In the last few months, we had multiple trucks that went into Gaza. A number of them, I was involved with that campaign. I was involved with a charity called HCI, Human Concern International. It's among those charities that you might have seen on Instagram and so on. I think they're doing a great job using influencers and social media. Don't ask me how they got those trucks into Gaza, because that wasn't my job. My job was to bring influencers. The point is, there's young guys and girls in US, Canada, etc. They're doing a great job. We got trucks into Gaza in the last few months. And I have audio from Mu'taz and others saying, thank you for the food, thank you for the medicine, etc. So with all the tools at our disposal and the time and the energy that we have, our generation, inshallah, we're gonna do big things. This is a positive thing. Unity. It is very, very, very challenging to bring people together. Raise your hand if you've ever experienced it, even if it's even if it's just an event. I'm trying to invite people to an event, or I'm trying to get people to join my organization or join the MSA. Raise your hand if you've had a tough experience trying to bring people together in any sense of the word. It's not, if you tried, it's not easy. I've never heard anybody say that it's easy, even if they're successful at it. Then this is sort of easy to bring hundreds of thousands of people together for a protest. It takes months and hours, and it's hard, right? It's tough, but that's what makes it meaningful. That's what makes it beautiful. It's tough because people are very different. They're different races, different ethnicities, different nationalities, different tribes. By the way, America 2024, there are different tribes. A tribe is not like a an ancient thing of like back in the day when we were lived in caves and we what's the word? That's what I'm looking for. Cavemen, I guess. Tribes is not some ancient thing. It's a very part of being human. So America has its tribes, and something you can research. But there are different tribes, different ethnicities, different races. But it's more than that. Also, people have different life experiences, different personalities, different lifestyles, different worldviews, different beliefs, different values. I can go down the list. Different genders. Oh my God, it's blasphemy to say that people are different if they're male or if they're female. Allah tells us in the Quran, He created men and women, loves men and women. We're spiritually equal. God said so. He created a soul. We both have souls. We're equal spiritually, even though there are differences. He tells us that men and women are not the same. But the point is, there's so many differences. Bringing people together becomes challenging. But that is why it's powerful. Being different makes it more powerful. Being different, or the term in corporate America is what? Synergy. Because we're so different, bringing people together that are different, you can do more. Right? There's strength and there's power in diversity. Something to think about. This is an example I use on gender, and I know gender is it's maybe the hottest topic in America today, maybe after Gaza. And it's been a hot topic for years and probably will be for a long time. If you're going to a 3-hour exam, you're going to take your SAT or an AP exam or what have you. You can take your license. You're applying to law school, med school, whatever it is, 3-4 hour, 8-hour exam, the MCAT, and you have an option between taking 2 pencils into this 4-hour exam, 2 erasers, or a pencil and eraser. Which would you take? Someone said 2 pencils. Like, yeah, you probably won't need even 2, 3, but if that's your only choice, maybe you want 3 pencils. If you have a pencil and eraser, 2 pencils and 2 erasers, what are you going to take? Am I going too fast? A pencil and eraser? But they're different. It's the whole point. There are times where difference is a beautiful thing. We talk about equality, 100%. Human rights and civil rights. Or no gender, or no group of people, no race should be abusing another race or oppressing another race, and men shouldn't be oppressing women. And it happens sometimes the other way. Agreed, but at the same time, the differences, something we should study, something we should value, something we should love, and then we should learn to work together despite our differences. That's what makes it very powerful. You want a pencil and eraser. Hopefully that makes sense. Just an analogy. I encourage you to never stop speaking the truth, never stop fighting for justice, never stop bringing people together by any and all Islamic means necessary. Thank you.